We have a lot of wines.
They used to stand. Like all the
Really,
time.
really.
And he's the owner bought a house at Cobblestone Creek in Victor. So he
Oh,
used to
small
come.
world. Yeah.
A friend of mine saw him and his wife, whose name escapes me, at the 7-Eleven at the corner of 332 and 96 in Farmington.
Wow.
Yeah,
Shit, he was just right there. He was right there near the casino.
not too far.
Mhm.
I just got the notification for YouTube, Heather, if that helps.
Yep, it just processed. We are live and ready to go whenever you folks are.
Okay, very good. Well, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll begin. Good evening. Welcome to this Town of Henrietta Planning Board meeting on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Members present: Patricia Brill, Robert Barley Jr., Craig Eckert, Marcy Reynolds. Town staff, Chris Martin, Director of Planning and Engineering, and Planning Board Attorney Daniel Mistrella. First item on the agenda this evening are the minutes from September 20th, 2022. The board has had an opportunity to review those. Any comments? Chair will make a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Mr. Barley, thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And the chair, the motion carries. We do have minutes accepted. All right. Next item on the agenda is just a discussion item, everyone. It's Marketplace Senior Apartments. We're to consider granting a 6-month extension of time for application number 21-007 located at 1100 Miracle Mile Drive in a commercial B1 zoned district with mixed use redevelopment overlay district. This project was originally approved on May 18th, 2021, and we granted an extension on April 19th, 2022. So I believe Mike is here with the applicant. Is that correct?
No, I think this
Oh, I'm
is,
sorry. Nope, Ryan. My bad. Ryan and Ryan.
Hi, this is Ryan with Rochester Constant Group. I believe the other Ryan is joining shortly if needed.
Okay, very good. Well, again, we're just looking at a 6-month extension here. Do you want to give us a brief update on why the extension is being requested, please?
The request is being extended due to the HCR financing with New York State. They usually have a very long pipeline, and we have a set closing project sign-off date of November 21st. So we're very confident that we should be under construction by Q1 of 2023.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
I didn't hear that date. We have construction when?
Ryan, what was the date you anticipate construction?
Q1.
We hope by the end of the year, but it's the holidays, so just a target the beginning of the year, 2023.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Now, the chair will make a motion to grant an extension on this application number 21-007.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Brian, you've got your extension. Thank you.
Thank you. A quick question. Since Chase is the financing partner on this, they're providing the equity. We have a hard cutoff date of November 21st to get this, by Friday to get the written extension. Do you think that will be possible before then?
By Friday, I would think so. Heather, are you still on by any chance?
left. She
No,
should-
I'll talk to Heather tomorrow. but
Okay.
Typically, she's very fast with these things, so I don't see any issue with her getting it by, at least by Friday. But I would say she could probably even do it on Thursday.
Okay,
That would be great. The sooner the better. I appreciate your help.
very good. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, next item on the agenda, application number PB 305.2B, Foxfield subdivision, section 2B. This is for final subdivision approval of a 7-lot, single-family residential subdivision on 2.14 acres of land located at Hidden View and Farrell Road Extension in an R115 zoned district. Let's see, who's here representing the applicant this evening?
My name is Mike Bogajewski with BME Associates.
Hi, Mike. Good evening.
Good evening. Here on behalf of Jane's Review LLC and Graywood Builders. We're requesting, like you mentioned, subdivision approval for what we're calling section 2B of Foxfield subdivision. It's basically the next 7 lots of the section, overall section 2 that was originally approved 2 years ago. May 2020 was when overall section 2 was approved, 54 lots. At that point, all of the infrastructure was built, the roadway and utilities are all in for overall section 2. What the applicant has chosen to do is just phase how they're filing the subdivision plats, which is requiring us to come here tonight. This time last year, we were here to get approval for what we called phase 2A, which was the first 13 lots, and now we're looking for the next 7, basically. So
Okay.
with that.
Very good.
Yep.
All right, well, the chair will go down the row, and Mr. Barley, the floor is yours. Any questions or comments, sir?
For Mike,
For Mike, yep.
how'd the first phase go? First 13?
First 13 has gone well so far.
Okay.
Yep, that's
And the town is granting easement for utilities?
Yeah, we've coordinated with Chris Martin and town staff for necessary easements in what basically the remaining lands of section 2 that would cover the roadway and utilities and stuff. So the town does have access through there until the right of ways are extended fully through the remaining section.
Anything else needed for this project?
Not at this point.
No other questions, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Barley. The chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just looking forward, talking with the developer last week about potentially dedicating section 2 roadway. Is that now part of this?
Well,
Or that
that'll
being
be
easy?
part of the dedication process that we're going through tomorrow night.
Okay, but that's going to dedicate section 2, but that doesn't show this as,
This
This
is part
plan-
of, this is part of section 2. So
Right.
yes, it will be included as part of that.
okay, so this map's a little bit outdated already.
No, it's not so much outdated. I mean, they have to show the new road, the existing roadway, which is we're calling it now on the new plat map. That's going to be filed in the county clerk's office.
Okay, then I guess I just have a question, which if I'm wrong, Mr. Mistrella, just correct me or silent me. Why would we only subdivide the next 7 when all of section 2 is built out, all the utilities laterals are in? The units are ready to be built.
That's their applicants choosing to only file a portion of lots at a time. And then hold on to the remaining lands until they're ready for additional lots.
Okay, but they're ready to be built on, they're just not sold, right?
Technically, the lots aren't filed yet until the subdivision plat is filed. So the overall section 2 plat is not filed, which is why we then came here last year at this point for phase A, which was the first 13 lots along Hidden View. And now they've chosen to get a subdivision approval for the next 7 lots, which we're calling phase 2B.
Right.
So-
Yeah, no, I understand
Yeah.
that,
It saves on taxes.
It saves on
is the
taxes,
bottom
correct.
line.
but they're developable lots.
No, but once the lot is subdivided, it's more valuable than if it's a bigger open space, even though the infrastructure's in.
There's an approved overall plat,
Yeah.
basically, but it hasn't been filed with the county, so the lots technically aren't created yet.
The future lots like.
No, I understand that. I just, but the road is in and the utilities are in, their laterals are into each lot.
Well, maybe it's a
Okay.
conversation you can have with Michelle tomorrow, but that's typically why this
Yeah.
is being done this way.
Okay, so but it's a tax savings, I guess. It's
It's a tax
everything else,
savings.
it's just paper and,
Correct.
yeah, okay. No other comments, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. The chair will recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you. I have no additional comments.
Very good. Any comments from town staff? Mr. Martin,
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mistrella?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve application PB 305.2B.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. Do I have a sufficient second, please?
Second.
Mr. Eckert, thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you very
Congratulations,
much,
you're welcome.
everybody.
Okay, moving right along. Next item, application number 22-017. True Blue Self-Storage Facility Expansion. This is for final site plan approval for the construction of 3 one-story storage buildings with approximately 111 interior units on 3.8 acres located at 60 and 78 Goodway Drive in an industrial zoned district. Gentlemen, can I have you introduce yourselves, please?
Hi, my name is Mike Mantel. I'm a civil engineer with Stantec. I also have William Clark and Mike Johnson here with True Blue to
Good evening, gentlemen.
help with any questions. So
What was the second name you mentioned? I'm sorry.
Michael Johnson.
I thought you mentioned somebody before, then I'm sorry.
Will Clark?
Oh, and William Clark.
Thank you.
So we're here to discuss the proposed expansion of the existing True Blue self-storage facility. The existing facility is at 60 Goodway Drive. It was constructed in 2015. The existing parcels, there's actually 2 separate parcels, which we've applied for a administrative approval of a re-subdivision to combine those 2 parcels. So it'll be the parcel of 60 Goodway where the existing facility is, and 78 Goodway, which is the adjacent parcel just to the east. The total parcel with the combination would be about 5.75 acres. It's zoned industrial use, so this is an allowed use for this property. The existing buildings total about 37,200 square feet. This building here is climate controlled. The rest are not. This building right here has office space in it for the facility. There is a 6-foot high ornamental black fence that goes across the front of the facility and has a gate to the entrance off of Goodway Drive.
Used to be. I don't know if she's still on.
There's an existing swale that was a dry swale that was constructed for the original project that's actually located on the 78 Goodway parcel. It provides stormwater management for the existing facility. And then the rest of 78 Goodway is a vacant lot right now. There's an existing 30-foot wide stormwater easement to the town that's located on the far east side of the 78 Goodway property. The proposed buildings, we're proposing 3. They're not climate controlled, and they total approximately 16,000 square feet. They'll be the same colors and finishes as the existing buildings out there. I think we did provide what those colors would be. The buildings itself would be a light stone. It's kind of a beige color. And then the trim and the roofs would be the evergreen color that was provided in the exhibit, green color. And then along the fronts of the buildings, along the bottom would be a brick finish. So they would just match what's out there now. The site itself would have approximately 49% green space, which was actually incorrectly labeled, I believe, on the plans. I think it was labeled as 33%. Unfortunately, that was the previous project when it was on the one property that was taken from that. So when the properties are combined, they'll have a 49% green space, and then the building coverage would be 21.2%. And so we'll revise that on the plans. The access will continue to be from the existing driveway access to Goodway Drive. And we'll continue the black ornamental fence across the rest of the front of the property between the facility and Goodway Drive. We're proposing a stone emergency access drive, which is actually in approximately the same spot. There's currently a stone drive that comes from Goodway into the 78 Goodway parcel. So this would be in approximately the same location. And really it's to provide just emergency access. There's the gate on it, but it would be for the fire truck to pull onto that driveway, not to enter the site, but then to use, the firefighters would carry the hoses and use the gate to get into the site to fight the fire. And that's how it was, and we'll confirm all of this with the fire marshal. But that's how it was handled with the original project.
Can you show me on the map where that road is?
This is the existing driveway right here.
Yep.
This would be the.
Okay. Thank you.
That's an existing access now, right?
There is an existing, so this is slightly larger than that one, but yeah. Don't drive it. And we're proposing a berm along the front of the new expansion area, so. Right along here. And we're proposing the Green Mountain sugar maples along that berm for screening from the road. We provided a stormwater pollution prevention plan to the town for review. We're proposing a new dry swale for stormwater management. It would be along this eastern edge of the new development. And provide stormwater quantity and quality treatment, much like the existing swale that's out there now for the current project. We provide erosion control features to prevent sediment and to control sediment and prevent erosion during construction. The disturbance area is approximately 1.9 acres, and we're trying to leave as much of this portion of the site undisturbed as possible. So after the dry swale, with a small berm, and then we come back down with some grade, and this will all be undisturbed. So it have, with the stormwater management facility, it have no adverse impacts to downstream facilities. We are requesting from the ZBA a front setback variance of 66 feet. The current requirement is 125 feet. So the original property got a variance for 90 feet to the existing building, and we're just aligning the buildings with the existing buildings. But when you come the cul-de-sac, the right of way to the cul-de-sac, and rotate into that lot, it makes it reduces the front setback there. So we'll be requesting that setback. So it's just so that we can have everything aligned the same. And you know, the owners take impeccable care of you know, the lawns and maintaining the site. It's very clean and nice, attractive site. And you know, obviously they'll continue to do that with the expansion. But business is going well, and they felt like it was a time to expand. So that's what we're here to try to do.
Great.
So that's all I have. If there's any
Thank you, Mike.
questions from the board.
One question for you. Did you receive the comments from town staff today?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I've received comments from Vanguard and from Chris and the marked up plans.
Yep. Any questions or concerns with those at all?
No, there wasn't anything that we thought was, you know, we don't take exception to any of them.
Okay, very good. Well, before I go on, I just want to acknowledge Councilwoman Safranek. Thank you. Appreciate you coming to this evening. Okay, now we'll open it up to the board. The chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Again?
Yes.
I'm first again.
Too much for you?
That might be too much for me. So you did mention that you guys have adhered to the stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Thank you.
Is everything okay with that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, the existing pond might need some minor modifications, and of course, our consultant also had some comments. So they just have to be addressed before we'll sign off on anything, Rob.
Okay.
But overall is pretty straightforward.
All right. No other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of comments, but I guess going back off that stormwater too, the existing dry swale and infrastructure, is that private now?
Yes.
Have we ever gotten an inspection report?
Yes.
We have, okay,
Mhm. Yeah, they've been
That's-
very good in doing those every year.
okay, that bodes well too, because I know that was pretty darn flat when it put in back whenever the first section went in 10,
Yeah, it was 2015.
yeah, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
You're putting a berm, you're proposing a berm on this side, but you don't have one in front of the existing facility now, right?
Correct, yeah.
it's- okay.
It was just to provide some, there's kind of an existing berm there now. And we're just trying to provide some screening from the road.
Okay, I guess I was expecting it to look the same as the other half or the other side, but you're gonna try something different.
It'll look, yeah, I mean, you'll still be able to see it. It was kind of for the town to, we thought that they may want a little bit more screening for the
I
facility.
thought it was a little high only because, and like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, was it like 3 or 4 feet high maybe?
Yeah, it's 4 feet, looking back at it, it's 4 feet from the facility, but it's more like 6 feet from the road, which you picked
Right.
up on. So we will look at lowering that because I agree that's kind of high. So,
Because sometimes it's just hard for the plants to get established.
That's
and
what I
get
was,
Yeah.
yeah,
stability.
I mean, that's not a requirement, I guess, if that's, I mean, if you're looking to fill a little dirt that you need from the site, I understand that, but.
yeah, and there's a little bit of that too.
Right, so if you're looking to balance, that's certainly not a bad thing, but you don't need to pop these trees up too high. I guess to, offset them differently from what they already are.
Okay, oh, thank
So that
you.
was my 2 cents on that. I do see a setback issue, but that's a variance board request more than anything, that not just the buildings and the pavement, but that fence is pretty close to the right of way, which isn't far off that pavement edge. And if I recall, all the snow from that cul-de-sac and even the parking lots, I know that the other neighbors are pushing the snow from their parking lot out into the cul-de-sac, across the cul-de-sac and into that side.
Okay,
So that's, I don't know how to change that old habit, which isn't really probably accurate to begin with. Yes, sir. Sure. Yeah, please come on up, identify or.
Bill Clark.
Hi.
In regards to the snow, the only ones that put snow over there now is the town.
Okay, Just-
Okay?
just
And
from the
they do
circle?
that swing, they put it in the center, and then they'll come back later with a loader and they push it off to the side. And there is, with the setback, there's still be plenty of room for snow there.
okay, because if we push it over and it damages the fence, it's,
No, the fence would be back far enough.
okay,
They use about 10 feet, 15 feet.
yeah,
And the reason for the berm is I just get nervous with landscapers and that's why I kind of started clear cutting it. People driving in there and dumping their stuff. So with the berm next to the old FSI building, there's no way anyone can drive in there
gotcha.
on
Okay.
that piece of property there.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay. Yeah, I just know, I mean, those piles with some of the snow that I've seen before have been 40, 50 feet tall.
Sure,
Sure. Yeah, get them nice and tall. So I was just, interested in how close that was getting with the existing operations that go on. There's 3 or 4 other tightly spaced access points around that cul-de-sac. And that north and northwest is the only place to push the snow.
Mhm.
So I remember from the other developers, so some of them were pushing it out from their private, so it's good to know that maybe that's curtailed at least. And slowed down some of that, but it's pretty close, so we'll have to see what the variance board says on that. The only other comment that I had, I think, was something that the conservation board stated. I think everything else you've addressed. I think they were looking for additional trees, replacing the 9 removed trees and getting up closer to 16 to satisfy the 8 trees per disturbed acre requirement. I don't know if that's been waived or talked about, Chris.
No, I mean, typically, if we would like to see the applicant install the trees on the site, but if they can't, then we do have the landscape bank that they can contribute to, and then we use that money to replace dead trees in town parks and other town facilities.
Yeah, so but if you can find them on site or use some, maybe even that lower wetland to help drink up some of the water. I don't know what's besides the cattails, what's down there.
Yeah, I mean, there's some brush and
Yeah.
maybe a few trees.
Okay,
We could,
Yeah.
Along that side there, like we did on the other property.
Great, okay, yeah, and I'll agree to that other comment too, the other sites meticulously maintained from what I remember, I haven't been back there in a year or two, but been close to that, so, and that's the extent of my questions, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Eckert.
you.
So then, can the applicant commit then to either putting additional trees on site, and if that's not feasible or doable, then making a donation to the was it Chris, the land bank,
Yeah,
the
tree land bank.
tree land bank? Yeah,
I mean,
Is it-
that's acceptable? Yeah.
okay, thank you. Okay, Chair will recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
Set, thank you. I have
Okay.
no additional questions.
Thank you very much. I think, Mike, you did mention, right, that you were gonna do the auto turn analysis for the fire equipment, correct?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I don't,
it's,
Oh, you're stopping short. You're not having to go in. That's right. Okay.
well, but we'll obviously we'll reach out and discuss with
With-
the
thank you.
fire
Yeah.
marshal.
Okay, very good. Mr. Martin, anything?
no, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Mastrella?
All set, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Now, we do have a seeker. So seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7 C1V III. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a site plan application by True Blue Self Storage. It is an unlisted action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for final site plan approval for the construction of 3 one-story storage buildings with approximately 111 interior units on 3.8 acres located at 60 and 78 Goodway Drive in an industrial zone district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do I have a sufficient second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bartley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, in the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We have a seeker. Chair will entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve application 22017.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Do I have a sufficient second?
Second,
Mrs. Brill, thank you. Discussion?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Was it mentioned that you require some variance for this?
Yes.
Yes. we
Yeah.
do.
Front setback.
Front setback.
It would be conditional
So it
based
should be
off.
conditioned upon the variance.
Okay. Would you like to restate your,
Mr.
Motion.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve application number 22017 on condition of the approval of the zoning board for the setback.
thank you, Mr. Eckert. And Mrs. Brill, would you like,
And I would confirm my second, and the way I have it written is based on approval of a 66-foot front setback variance from the zoning board of appeals. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, discussion?
Yeah, just one question that I didn't ask before. You guys are gonna have a 3-year landscaping?
That's a requirement from the town. So yeah. we
Okay.
would have to do
What
that.
happens after that?
I can answer that. So at the end of that 3-year cycle, we send somebody out. We used to do town staff, but I don't know much about trees, to be quite honest.
Mhm.
So we send out a certified nursery professional to go out to review the trees. And then she'll write every letter, does something need to be replaced
Okay.
or is everything okay? And then we give that letter to the applicant to address.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Also, Mr. Bartley?
All set.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good to see you, Mike.
You too. Take care.
For the next application, I do have some handouts or some building samples. There's the
Excellent.
See if you want to take a look at them and take some doubts.
So next item on the agenda, application number 22-018, Floor and Decor Outlets of America. This is for final site plan approval of a freestanding 65,136 square foot retail store on 6.74 acres at 20 Miracle Mile Drive in a commercial B1 zoned district. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Howard Jenislaw from the law firm Gibbons PC, and I'm here appearing on behalf of Floor and Decor. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you. And Howard, can I get you to spell your last name for us, please?
Sure. It's G like in green, E-N as in Nancy, E-S as in Stephen, L-A-W.
Thank you.
And
Well,
where are you from? Forgive me.
I'm from the law firm Gibbons PC, the attorneys for Floor and Decor.
Gibbons.
Yep. Is that Gibbons?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good, Howard. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to give you a brief overview of what we're proposing. This is a freestanding Floor and Decor retail store consisting of approximately 65,000 square feet within the footprint of the former Macy's. For anyone who may not be familiar with Floor and Decor, being that they don't currently have any stores in Western New York, they are a nationwide retailer of hard surface flooring, items like stone, tile, and wood. They are in major markets across the country, and they would like to be in the Rochester market. The property is in the B1 commercial district in which this type of use is permitted by right. The proposal, as I mentioned, is to build a freestanding building. It will have a loading area. There will be a customer pickup area that we can talk about in a little more detail, and your typical associated parking, landscaping, sidewalks, etc. The project does require a special permit for building height in the entrance feature area. That special permit was granted by the town board on October 26th. I have several representatives with me tonight from Floor and Decor and from their engineering firm and their permitting consultants. Not all of them are necessarily going to speak tonight, but at this point, if the board would like to hear a little more detail about the operation of the business, I can have someone discuss that, or if the board would prefer, we can get right into a discussion of the plan itself.
Okay, well, very good. It's going to be nice to get that space utilized again if we get to that point.
We're very excited about that.
Pardon me?
So we're very excited about that. We're looking forward to getting that space reused in a beneficial way.
Thank you. Okay, well, the chair will begin right now with Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. Bear with me 1 second, please.
I would have gone to Mr. Barley, but
That's
we
okay.
saw how that worked last time. So.
Yeah.
It worked out just fine, Mr. Chairman.
Just want to confirm, have you received the comments from the town?
Yes, we received a number of comments from Vanguard, from Stantec, from Mr. Martin, from Fire, from Building. So yes, we have all the comments.
And specific to Chris Martin from the town's comments, do you have any comments or concerns about anything mentioned?
I think we have no major objections really to anything, but let me introduce our civil engineer so that he can correct me if I've misstated in any way. That would be Matt Checka from Stonefield Engineering. Matt?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Howard. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Matt, can
Yeah,
you
hi.
spell your last name
Yes,
for me, please?
right, just for the record, Matt Checka, it's spelled Checca, and I'm with the firm Stonefield Engineering and Design.
Thank you for spelling that slowly. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a lot of C's. It gets confusing. Yeah, so like Howard mentioned, we're proposing to demolish the existing Macy's facility and are proposing a 65,000 square foot standalone Floor and Decor facility. I can go in and share my screen and go into detail with the logistics of the site. Should you want me to dive in a little further, but like Howard mentioned, we have received comments from town staff, town engineering, building and fire protection departments, as well as SWIP and landscaping comments from the town consulting engineers, Vanguard and Stantec. And in reviewing these letters in more detail, we have no major objections with their comments, and just basically are excited to continue working with the town to adjust and finalize the application. So
Thank you. One of the first comments under general was a comment to take the dumpster enclosure from 6 to 8 feet. I just wanted to confirm that for the record.
This is number 4 under general from Ms. Martin's report.
Yes.
yeah, if that's okay with the overall tenant, Julie or Elizabeth, I think that should be fine. I see a shaking of the head, yes, so I think we can accommodate that.
And under the same general, number 7, it does talk about the turning templates should be provided to ensure the town's fire trucks can access the site adequately. Has that been addressed?
We have reviewed it from a WB67 tractor trailer, and we don't see any objections with it following the same path for the fire truck. I can share the WB67 truck route should you want to see that right now. But that's something that we can provide, but we don't see any conflicts with that. Basically, the application is to, do you mind if I share my screen so I can show everyone?
Sure.
That's fine. Yep.
All right. Let me know if everyone can see the screen.
Yes. we can
All
see-
right, so the site's located along the Miracle Mile Drive loop in the Marketplace Mall, adjacent to Highland Drive. Just for context, north is up on the page. The existing Macy's facility is essentially abutting this property line here and takes up this part of the shopping center development. If I switch to the site plan, you can see that it basically takes up the same square footage, and the overall logistics of the internal loop roads and roadways and driveways as part of the application aren't changing. So should the existing fire truck be safe to maneuver around the existing shopping center today, it should be same for this proposed project.
Thank you. And is the building going to butt up again, the existing building?
No, we're providing a 60-foot buffer between the existing building here, just along the property line, and our new facade between the existing shopping center and the proposed retail facility for Floor & Decor. In communications with the landlord, it was kind of a win-win for both parties. Floor & Decor specifically likes their building as a standalone space, and the landlord requested a buffer between the existing shopping center and the new facility. We just want to put it on record that this 60-foot courtyard space that we're kind of calling it with our internal design team is not part of this application, and it will be permitted at a later date, subject to the application from the landlord. Floor & Decor's responsibility will only be to stabilize this area for soil erosion purposes, and I believe they're in discussions with the landlord on what type of material that stabilization will be, but it's likely to be gravel.
Does it make sense to have gravel with fire apparatus possibly having to go through there? Or would
Well, we
that-
can stabilize the gravel and make it a little compacted. We just didn't want to put any hard impervious surfaces on there due to the unknown nature of what this courtyard is going. I say courtyard, but what this 60-foot area will be. There is plenty of maneuverability around the facility for a fire truck to access the building should there be a fire on the site.
Are there bollards or stanchions at each end of the 60-foot buffer?
We currently don't provide any. There are some at some of the features like the proposed store enclosure for utilities, but should that be a condition, we'll be more than happy to provide bollards if the board thinks that's necessary.
So right immediately to the upper left of where you have your, yeah, exactly, that square. identify that for me, please? What was that square you were just circling?
Sure. So if this is an existing utility enclosure, it is transformers and electrical equipment. The proposal would be to remove this, and it's screened, and this is the screening wall around these utilities. Currently on site, if we go to, you know, the street view, I guess, which is nice that we can see this, it's this enclosure here.
Aha, yes.
So what we're proposing is removing this enclosure so we can get access freely to this utility enclosure, and then we are rebuilding a similar screening wall in its place. So this will be a brand new enclosure as part of the project. And what we're proposing to do, if we switch to our landscaping, oh, well, one of the comments from the Conservation Committee was to screen this area, which we have no objections with. We were planning on screening in around that enclosure to, you know, make it more appealing to the public eye.
And screening with what?
Just, you know, low level planting, some evergreen trees, you know, a variety of plantings based on your plant schedule and the town requirements.
So you're removing the existing, I believe it was a brick wall. Are you putting back any hard surface as well?
Yeah, there will be a brand new screening hard surface around the utility enclosure, and then we're proposing further screening just adjacent to that wall.
Very good, thank you. And that's what I was alluding to as far as the hard surface. Will it be brick? What will that hard surface be?
The enclosure.
Yes.
Julie or Elizabeth, do you want to speak to that? I'm not too sure.
And basically where I'm going is matching the materials that were passed around, matching the new building, et cetera.
Understood. I'm just going to turn it to the applicant who's here on the call, and he can probably answer that a little bit more efficient than I can.
Yeah, this is Julie Starzinski. I'm Director of Construction and Design for Floor & Decor. Last name for the record is S as in Sierra, T as in Tango, A as in Alpha, R as in Romeo, Z as in Zulu, Y as in Yankee, N as in November, S as in Sierra, K as in Kilo, I as in India. So we're actually planning on using CMU, and then we will end up painting it to match our existing building colors.
Thank you. Bear with me while I flip my page here.
Of course.
I'm all set. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
To piggyback off that same comment, but the building's not CMU, it's precast, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So you're going to use CMU, but you're just going to paint it to match?
That is correct. It should be an Urbane bronze color by Sherwin-Williams.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Sorry, it's an Urbane bronze. That's the name of the color by Sherwin-Williams. Sorry.
Okay. But so it's not shown on the elevation though?
We will make that's updated. It should be.
All right, well, I guess I'd like to go back to one of my my first comment here. I guess I was understanding that the main entrance to this building would be facing the east towards Highland Drive. I don't know if that was a previous submission or concept that's come through and now it's facing north.
The existing building currently faces, this is our existing conditions plan. The existing building does face to the east, the main entrance, and it's easier to show on like an aerial. That's why I keep on switching back to this. But you know, the main entrance as part of the Macy's facility was located, I keep on switching around here, but to the east. There are two separate entrances to the north and south. The plan would be to demolish these two entrances here and then remove the main entrance here as well as the ADA parking spaces. And if I swap to the site plan again, the main entrance now faces the main parking lot to the north. And in replacement of the existing side entrances to the Macy's facility, we're making the building a little smaller in nature. So we added a parking lot in replacement over there. Similarly to the south, we are mirroring the loading bay, and the loading bay will be facing to the west and removing that existing entrance that's currently there. And it's important to note that this layout does reduce impervious surfaces. So we are increasing pervious landscape services by approximately 18,000 square feet, which is almost a little over 1/4 acre.
Yeah, I understand that, but I guess why, I thought that I saw a concept before that's come across through the town that showed the main entrance to the east.
I'm not too sure if that was, you know, I don't think that was something that we prepared, no. We did have an administrative review a few months ago, like 6 months ago. But that was a proposal to keep the existing building. But due to some of the construction issues that were encountered, the plan is to demolish the existing building and replace that in kind. Maybe that's something you're referring to, but the plan has always had the existing entrances to the north of the project area.
I'm not sure that I understand why that would be the storefront to the north side instead of to the east, which is to the main street frontage at Highland Drive. So that would make the east facade the standard facade, which would be just a very blank wall with coloring facing the main frontage to Highland Drive.
Yeah, I can answer that question. So in discussions with the landlord is thinking about putting an out parcel in that parking lot that is closest to Highland Ave. So we needed to change our storefront entrance to the north side of the building, so it's visible to the public.
I'm sorry, what's that alt parcel now?
The landlord is thinking about putting an out parcel. He has not gone into specifics, but when we talked with him, he said that he wanted to make sure our entrance was visible. That's why he's on the north side. So that if the landlord decides to put an out parcel in the parking lot closest to Highland, there's that option and it won't block our entrance.
Okay, well, that would still have to be approved by the planning board, and now we're going to be looking at a solid, wall towards Highland Drive. You're putting the side of the building towards the main thoroughfare of Highland Drive.
That is correct. We are. And right now, the landlord has not given us any sort of timeline for that out parcel. So I don't know if he's putting that in with the 60-foot corridor between our space, our courtyard, or if he's doing that at a different time.
I'm not going to vote in approval of a project that doesn't put the store frontage towards Highland Drive. I don't know why. It's the side of a building. It's a concrete solid wall that's going to look terrible to Highland Drive. The store frontage going north isn't going to be visible from Highland. It's barely going to, and at 1,000 feet away, it's not going to be visible really from Jefferson.
Matt, can you bring up the building elevations? Do you have a colored rendering of them that you could share with us?
I do. Just give me a few moments to bring that up.
In being at the site and navigating around that site, I have to say that I think that entrance on the north side is very visible, especially from the intersection that has the traffic light at it.
Then I'm going to use your same methodology, because on the north side of that, there's as an out parcel up there now that can be built on, which it was already approved. In fact, it was approved to be another restaurant that went someplace else. There's an out parcel there that would then block that frontage as well.
It will block it to the north?
Yep.
Well, it would have, but now you're gonna own that northern parking lot, correct?
Yeah, if I could jump in, this is Eric Wright with Wilmer Wright, Vice President Construction, and that's Eric Wright, WRIGHT. Julie is correct. We do hope to develop an out parcel and that parking field to the east. In addition, having the main entrance on the north side is driven partially by the parking fields to the south being controlled by the University of Rochester. So naturally, the retail corridor and parking areas is to the north of the site, as opposed to split between the north, south, and east.
Do you have more of a satellite image on that? Can you go further to the north? So the black line, okay, so the black marking is, nope, go back to what you had. The black line there is your limits of disturbance?
No, that's the property line. Our limits disturbance is basically just around the existing facility.
So just north of that black line is that rectangle going north. There you go. That's the out parcel.
Craig, I think I can speak to that a little bit. As part of the lease with Floor & Decor, basically that area to the north is staying as parking. So we've sort of adjusted where we may put an out parcel, as opposed to that stone drainage area that would remain parking at the time.
Eric, I guess I understand that, but I'm not gonna, what the out parcel on Highland Drive never goes through, and the side of that building is always facing Highland Drive. We're looking at a concrete wall, which I'm not in approval of. I don't know why we can't either dress it up, make it look like a storefront. I don't know why it would be moved. The storefront's been at Macy's up for decades. So it's been to that east side, and nothing's ever been put into that out parcel on the east side of that. And putting the main entrance on the north side instead of to the east towards Highland Drive, to me, doesn't make any sense. I don't know why we can't have store frontages facing our main thoroughfares.
So I'm okay with dressing up that elevation. I cannot have an entrance on that side though. So I want to make that perfectly clear. We are a one entrance building. I can definitely dress that elevation up and make it look more presentable to that drive, but there will not be an actual storefront there.
Yeah, I don't know. Why can't the storefront face the east? Yeah, I'm not going to ask, I'm not looking for answers of what could be, down the road that never comes to materialize.
Understood. The storefront, we have certain dimensions we need for our actual storefront elevation. The east side does not have the correct width for us, so I cannot put a storefront there. It has to go on the north or the south side. The north was the best choice out of both.
Okay, I'll take that into account. The 60-foot space that's going in between the two buildings, I need to see something on these plans of what that's going to be.
If that's being a separate application, I don't think that we can accommodate that. That's not going to be part of our scope of work. And Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm not sure if you guys have started developing that.
We haven't. We've come up with some concepts of a mixture of courtyard and hardscape area. Part of what's going to drive that is the adjacent tenants, whether that's a larger tenant or multiple smaller tenants with courtyard access. So we're really, our leasing team, now that, Floor & Decor is hopefully coming here, is working hard to fill those adjacent spaces.
Okay, so again, I'm going to need to see on this set of plans what's being done with that 60-foot space. This project is creating that space and that gap, and I need to see that it's not going to be left wide open as a trash thoroughfare or whatever else is going to be in between those spaces. So we need to see what's going on and what's proposed for that space.
Well, I think the challenge is that may not be known for some period of time. Perhaps
I would suggest putting something in there temporarily that appeases the board to some satisfaction, that it's not just left to do nothing until somebody feels like they want to do something with it.
Well, so I was just going to suggest perhaps there's something of a more interim basis that could be identified that would be appropriate so that the board would be more comfortable in proceeding with Floor & Decor, and then having the landlord come back at a subsequent date once they've finalized what their plans are.
That I guess would be a possibility, but leaving it as a potential down the road without any understanding of what it's going to look like until then is not something that I'm interested in seeing.
I mean, let me ask you this, Craig, and again, I don't mean to interrupt, but
You might want to use the mic.
are you looking for, right now they're proposing a gravel area. What would you like to see there? Would you like to see it grassed or gravel or?
It needs to be something more than nothing, which is just gravel, which would be nothing, which would just be a place for people to sit, do nothing, trash, storage, I don't know. If it's planned to be something, then it's just not going to sit unused or be a trash area or something else, so.
Or maybe if it was like a lawn area with some gravel area, so they could put picnic tables or something temporary that could be moved if they had to.
Anything as an interim would be better than showing nothing or as a potential for the future.
And then they're calling it a courtyard.
Right.
So if they're calling it a courtyard, maybe make it a courtyard.
Yeah, something that could be temporary that could be removed in case something else a little more, without putting a lot of money into it. I don't know, what do you think,
What-
Howard?
Well, I mean, I think that if the board isn't comfortable leaving it as gravel, subject to what Julie may have to weigh in on this, we can look at some sort of an interim solution. That's something that the landlord and Floor and Decor are going to have to work out in terms of who's responsible for what. If it's something such as grass and, maybe a few chairs or picnic tables on a temporary basis, that's something that we could potentially consider.
I would agree with that statement, but it has to be a discussion between the landlord and Floor and Decor at this point.
Yeah, and I think we're on board for something along those lines as well, some sort of a gravel pathway and greenscapes and, a nice place that could be utilized by mall patrons as well as I see folks from the U of R coming over and having a nice green space to utilize. There's not a lot of that at the mall right now.
That's a nice idea.
I definitely, that's kind of what I see in my head, making it, I mean, it's gonna be a crossover. People from the new medical facility, there's the existing mall area that we hope to see improved upon. And then this site that is not connected, that's gonna be a walkway area from, connecting two parking lots, but getting to two different areas. I think it should be, there's a section I can picture, at Eastview, which is also a Wilmerite property, am I correct?
Yep.
So if you can picture the walkway right behind what was PF Chang's, I believe. It's a small walkway. And it
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then the valet area where the Christmas tree is. That is simply a walkway, but it's lovely. It's hardscaped. It's a brick ground. It's beautifully landscaped on both sides, but it's pretty much exactly what we're talking about. I'd like to see something like that.
Yeah, and that is what we envision that being. We certainly don't envision it as any type of storage area or anything like that. That is going to be some sort of nice use that is usable by the mall patrons and patrons of the entire property. We just don't know what it is, and we don't want to come up with an elaborate plan that's tied to Floor and Decor's approval that could change based on the tenants. But that is the ultimate goal, something like that. So I think we can create a cost-effective solution in the interim and work with the town as the landlord's separate approval for that area as well.
That sounds fair, Mr. Eckert. Is that amenable to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see that on the plan so that we have an understanding of what it's supposed to look like that I'm gonna vote on to that, but I'll be frank, I'm not gonna vote to approve this project without the store frontage facing Highland Drive, or at least a large change in the facade, which we're not seeing right now. The store frontage should be at Highland Drive like everything else up and down Highland Drive. So those are my comments, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert.
Thank you.
Okay, the chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I had a question about the Santec Consulting recommendations and the landscaping plan that responds and to our guidelines here in the town. Are any issues with that?
No, we spoke with our landscaping team and they have no objections to the comments. The only one that we see being somewhat a discussion point is based on the requirements, and one of them was in the comment letter. There was discussions about the landscaping needs to be 10 to 15 feet away from the foundation of the facility. I don't think we will be able to meet that due to due to the site constraints, excuse me. But however, we do show plantings along this foundation just to, add more green to the project. And that was one of the discussion items that we had with the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
So that was really the only one that we had objection to.
All right. How long is the land lease on this project?
Julie, can you answer that?
Eric, I think we had done a 15-year lease. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it's a 15-year base term with options to extend. But yeah, it's a minimum of 15 years.
All right, thank you. No other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. The chair will recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
I only at the time were about the space between the buildings, but those have already been addressed. And will be for further discussion. I have nothing else at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. I've just got a quick comment here. I'm sure you saw Mr. Wilson's comments, and he indicates that the fire department connection location is not ideal as it is hidden on fire department approach. Chris, can you weigh in on that at all and give us some perspective? Is it dangerous where it is, or obviously not because it's been there, but would you prefer to see it more
Yeah, I
visible?
mean, obviously, and again, I don't know if it's hidden or it's not as easily identified where it is now. I know with the fire department, they want to pull up and know exactly where it is. So what I would suggest is that the applicant work with the fire marshal and Kevin to come up with a location that's acceptable.
Okay,
Yeah, we have no objection to that. We'll be more than happy to work with the town consultants to provide a useful area that meets everyone's needs.
okay. And to go back and piggyback on Mr. Ecker's comment a little bit, Julie, what thoughts might you have for dressing up that side of the project? Do you intend to have a sign on that side of the building?
Yeah, Matt, can you go back to the colored rendering again? Building elevations, thank you. So which one are we looking at?
The east side, right?
Second one down.
The second one down right here. So they're,
Okay.
You have the truck base towards Highland.
Yeah, so I should I should point out that we haven't completed our signage analysis yet, but there will be some sign variances required for number of signs, overall number of signs for the business, and some of the wall signs, the larger ones that say Floor and Decor, will likely require variances for sign area. And we do intend to apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for those variances once we finish the site plan process.
And those are loading docks, right?
yeah, and in discussion with town staff, we have screening around the loading bays. So we're providing plantings around the truck well to hopefully screen it from the public view.
Okay.
Yeah, and that elevation, we can look at putting a sign on that side of the building. And then we would break up the monotony of just a solid piece of concrete. There'll be pilasters. We could probably do 2 corner tower elements to make it not a big box just on the corner of Highland.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. Can you explain that again?
Yeah, so we can definitely put a sign on that elevation. And then I said I would add in some vertical elements and towers to kind of break up the monotony of the solid piece of concrete for an elevation.
Okay.
Yeah, can you go back to the front elevation or they'd be the north elevation? Just kind of compare the two.
Yeah, whatever you can do to make it look like a front of a building is what we'll be asking.
We can definitely look at that.
So I don't know if it's like the concrete towers or something to tie the front or the north elevation to the east elevation. But I can see Mr. Record's point. You know, it would be nice. That's going to be certainly a highly visible building elevation. And it would be nice to kind of dress it up just a little bit.
Yes, we will have as a takeaway and dress up that elevation.
Okay. So Chris, can we?
I know I agreed with you, right? I mean,
I wrote that down for the.
all right, good. Well, so what we could do, and again, Dan, you know, interrupt me if I'm wrong here, but certainly if we wanted to, we could do a condition site plan approval with the building elevation either coming back to the board or do an administrative review of the building elevations.
Cable, can be cable.
Well, that's always an option, yes.
Do that as well.
But I think the main concern that I see is the building elevation and the courtyard. And I think we can get some, you know, certainly I think we can get some resolution on both of them.
Disagree.
Yeah.
In the courtyard, we could bring that back as a discussion or not discussion item, but you know, for the board review as well.
A conditional approval would be optimal from the applicant standpoint. We'd certainly be happy to work with your professionals or to bring the elevation back to the board itself if the board wanted to review it or have a further discussion. But a conditional approval would be very helpful just in terms of expediting the project and getting construction underway sooner.
And what if we do a conditional approval to view the plans in the courtyard and east facing building elevations, but we are not able to come to an agreement?
Well, presumably the condition would require that the ultimate resolution of the so-called courtyard space, as well as the building elevation facing Highland Avenue, would be revised in consultation with the board or its professionals to either its professional satisfaction or the board satisfaction, however it was worded. And if those conditions were not satisfied, then the approval would have a condition that wasn't met.
It's
So
like.
we couldn't-
Exactly. It's
Yep,
like
so-
a total deja vu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if I can interject, practically speaking, we're back here in a month. Practically speaking, what's going to happen if we get a conditional approval between now and 4 weeks from now?
Well, if we had a conditional approval, that would enable us to begin and commence the appeal period. It would enable permit applications to start moving forward in terms of demo. So there's a lot that could be happening during that time period that would help the project to move along and to be completed more quickly.
And if you're unable to secure the approval of the board with the proposed revisions to the courtyard and to the Highland Drive facing elevation, where's that going to leave you as the applicant?
Well, the applicant, in consultation with the landlord, would have to determine what the appropriate time is to actually commence demo, but they could at least start the permitting process. They could get through plan review. They could get the permit in hand and basically be ready to go. So there would definitely be a time savings if there were a conditional approval.
And Howard, in tandem with that, also working on the updated drawings to come back in the 4-week period to the board?
Yeah, we have plans to, update the drawings based on the town comments. But again, should we receive, approval tonight, we can do that, with the town staff.
And I have a question, and I'm not sure if this is for Eric or not, but whose responsibility is it going to be to make that courtyard nice? Make it a lovely walkway, put benching on there as a walkthrough. I just brought up the images that are out at Eastview to kind of share with some of the folks sitting next to me. There's really nice grasses and landscaping along that walkway. Is that the responsibility of Wilmerite?
Yeah, that would fall on us to make sure that is, when we decide what we're doing, that we turn it into a beautiful space, but also maintain it as a beautiful space. So, I think we can make that commitment that we would maintain whatever is being proposed there as an ultimate solution. But we would also maintain this temporary area that we create with the grass area and stone walkways. And I think that can be a great interim amenity as well. And this is our, it will remain our property. So basically the leased land will be the edge of Floor & Decor's building, and it'll be our responsibility to maintain that.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Mastrella, do you have any more comments, sir?
No, so yeah, I mean, if based on what I've heard, my suggestion would be that if there is going to be a conditional approval, that it be with the understanding that the planning board is going to approve the elevation, so actually the east and west side of the building, the courtyard and the east elevation. I don't think that's something that you can on a project of this scope leave entirely to staff. That said, it doesn't mean that it's going to, you know, take a world of work to get there, but obviously, the sooner you see it, the better off everybody is in this.
I just want to point out that you know, the intention of the project is to build the Floor and Decor facility. The courtyard is a separate ancillary project as part of the, you know, landlord's responsibility from Eric and his team. Like he just mentioned, the lease area is just the perimeter of our building, and that's it. So the responsibility from Floor and Decor only is within that limit. So I just fear that, you know, due to the, you know, timely, it could take some time to come up with those drawings since those aren't developed yet. The solely purpose of this plan set is to approve the Floor and Decor facility, ancillary to, you know, the courtyard, if that's what we're calling it, for the lack of better terms.
And Matt, let me be clear from my 2 cents on that, this Floor and Decor project is creating this ancillary area that doesn't have any plan, which is of concern to us, to me.
Understood. And there's no objection from our end on that.
Okay. So my 2 concerns are that 60-foot area in between and the storefront facing Highland Drive. Those are my comments that I'm going to stick to. So if we want to do conditional and try to come back, I'm okay with that. But I want to be very clear, what I'm looking for going forward will be at least a temporary interim plan for that space in between. And I would like to see the storefront facing Highland Drive. You know, you can come back at 25% and we can kick it back, and we can do this for 3, 4, or 5 months if you want to keep going back and forth. And if we still, you know, until we're satisfied with that approval, you know, as a group, it won't just be me, it'll be the entire planning board will be able to vote as they feel. So, you know, when you get to a certain percentage that the rest of the group feels is adequate, then you'll have your approval based on that. But I can tell you what I'll be voting for approval on.
Just for clarity, if I could ask this question concerning the Highland Avenue frontage, Julie had indicated earlier some things that can be done to dress that up and to break up the monotony, to add vertical elements, add towers, etc. Of course, you haven't seen that yet. We haven't developed it yet. Our goal would be to come back with something that's attractive into your liking. But I want to be clear if you're suggesting that frontage could be dressed up in a way that would be satisfactory, or if you're suggesting that there's no set of circumstances under which you would grant an approval that does not have the actual entrance facing Highland Avenue, because from a physical dimensional standpoint, as Julie's indicated, there's just not adequate space to fit what Floor and Decor needs to do in order to build and stock and operate their store. So I'd like to make sure we're all on the same page on that point.
Howard, I don't sure that the frontage is there was certainly adequate for Macy's to have an entrance. That was their main entrance because it faced Highland Drive. That is where we'd like to see main entrances facing the main roadway that's going by. You want to dress up the frontage. You know, and quite honestly, I call it putting the back of the store towards the main frontage, and that's not me as a planning board member what I'm interested in seeing. I am one member of this board, so I am interested in seeing the storefront towards Highland Drive. If there is a accommodation that can be met that meets the majority of the board in between what you have now and what I'm looking for, then that is, I guess, the conditional that you're looking for.
So I do want to address that real fast. I need a minimum of 250 feet on my store frontage based on the layout and flow of our space. I cannot get 250 feet on the east elevation, and why we have moved the storefront to the north elevation. Operationally, we cannot make it work, and it needs to be 250. There's a safety issue as well. We use forklifts inside the building. I need certain widths and dimensions to make sure that it operates safely and efficiently for us. If we could put the elevation on the east elevation, I would do that today. I cannot. I do not have the frontage I need for it.
I mean, Floor and Decor is a much different sort of operation than the prior Macy's was. You know, they obviously have a much different type of product mix that they sell. And so that's what's driving some of the concerns that Julie was just talking about. and that the product line is much different. The use of forklifts, safety considerations, it's just a different sort of retail operation than what was there before.
Julie, to maintain that 250 feet across the northern entrance, if you will, has any consideration been given to put the entrance on the corner of the building so that you have entrances on both the north and the east side, so that the entrances are on two sides, making it a corner entry area? Does that?
So have tried corner entrances and it does not work with the flow of our space. How the store inside of the store lays out and how the customer experiences, a corner entrance is not doable with our store operation, fortunately.
Can you advise what the closest store is to the Rochester area?
Built wise, I think we had said, Howard, keep me honest, it's not Warrensville Heights, is it?
I believe to the west it's Warrensville Heights, Ohio, and I think to the east it's probably northern New Jersey.
Yep.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, we have very stringent design standards to make our stores safe to operate and just operationally efficient for our customers and for our employees. We have a certain customer experience we do inside, and we're just very, very set, unfortunately, on dimensions and where things are located.
And Julie, that's based on presumably practical experience at other stores, right? That you've tried things and some have worked, some haven't, and over time has your store evolved to have the best basically of all the different operational experiences that the company has had over the years?
That would be correct, yes.
And then we've got to worry about the potential restaurant out in front as well, which could be coming down the pike, right?
You mean on the east side?
On the east side, right?
Building.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever Wallenright does with that out parcel at some
Yeah.
point, which could happen.
Well, I can say I appreciate the applicant's willingness to dress up that side. I do understand Mr. Eckert's concern, but for me, it's I understand the applicant and I kind of appreciate, I think, the entrance facing Jefferson Road as well. So that's my 2 cents on that. You know, we can see where this goes. I can read the seeker and then we can, we can consider a motion. Dan, is that appropriate, Mr. Mistrell, at this point?
Yeah, you can do it that way. And I mean, practically speaking, this conditional approval isn't much of an approval because all it's doing is giving the applicant the ability to schedule things a little more quickly. But you've got certainly the east elevation is a big issue. Practically speaking, the applicant should also recognize that this is a 7-person board with 2 people absent tonight.
So give me 4.
It's a 4-person quorum that has to be met here. And when the other 2 board members are present, given that this is a conditional approval, they'll be voting on whether the conditions have been adequately met. We don't know what their position may or may not be at that time. So, if the applicant's asking for a conditional approval with the understanding that they may be investing in something that doesn't come to fruition, tell us that, and that may guide who makes a motion for what.
Well, I think we would certainly prefer a conditional approval. We understand what the concerns are. And we certainly intend to come back and address the gap issue or the courtyard issue, if you will, as well as the facade issue. But it would be helpful to get a sense, is the board comfortable with doing that? We certainly don't want to end up in a situation where we end up with a negative vote when we certainly plan to come back with the board and try and address the concerns that are outstanding.
Can the board be polled then? Is that something that we can do?
You can, chairman can do
Okay.
that if he chooses.
All right, we will poll the board. I'll start with Mr. Barley. Your thoughts, sir?
I think listening to everything that's transpired here and the risk that this company's gonna take, it's probably better that we table it and let them work on everything they need to do and then come back. I don't think that that month's gonna make a big deal, as our attorney said. I think it's more prudent to do that. That's the way I would vote.
Thank you,
To
Mr.
table
Barley. Mrs. Brill?
I concur. I believe tabling it so that the proper time is spent on those two issues rather than spending time elsewhere. And that does give the opportunity for two additional board members, and hopefully no one else will be absent then. So we will all be here and have a larger opportunity for a larger quorum. But I think these are topics that have been near and dear to our heart and that we really focus on. I would like to see, I look forward to seeing those plans come back to us in December with those improvements to make the eastern facade look like a front of a building, not a side of a building. To mirror, and as Julie said, break up the stone structure with towers or, something to mirror what is done on the north side. And then see what Wilmrite can do to spruce up that area along the west side, what we are calling the, what do we call it, a courtyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Mr. Eckert?
I agree with the other board members. I'm okay with a conditional. I just, again, am with Mr. Mistrella that if the conditions aren't met, then we're, going, we did this once before where we were 4 months out to get approval.
Yeah, and I think that was because the applicant took a long time and it took many tries to get
Right.
it approved.
So, we've gone through that process and that was successful, I believe. So I'm okay with a conditional, but, again, I'm not the only one.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Mrs. Reynolds?
I would agree with everyone. I would prefer to table this until we have the full board. And we can look at the revised drawings regarding the east side of the building and the courtyard as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mistrella, do I need to do a seeker ahead of time and then do a formal vote on a motion, or can we go right to the motion?
Well, you have to do seeker
Do seeker,
before.
thank you.
Well, you can table without doing seeker.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Yep,
You can also,
seeker.
you
and
can't
then-
do a conditional approval without seeker.
Okay,
And you can do seeker and then table as well if seeker approval will be advantageous to the applicant, which I believe it would be probably.
okay.
I mean, it would give them some comfort level that they're not going to get shot down on the environmental quality review.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Then the chair will read the seeker. Seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7 C1V III. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a site plan application by Floor and Decor Outlets of America Incorporated. It is an unlisted action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for final site plan approval of a freestanding 65,136 square foot retail store on 6.74 acres at 20 Miracle Mile Drive in a commercial B1 zoned district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do I have a sufficient second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We do have seeker. Chair will entertain a motion. Anyone?
I make a motion that we table.
Motion to table, Mr. Barley. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Discussion?
To confine the two comments, I think we've gone over them, but the plans to address the area, the 60-foot area between the buildings, at least with a design for in the interim. And if a store frontage cannot be achieved on the eastern side, what alterations to that facade can be made to match?
Okay. Thank you.
And if I could jump in, this is Eric Woolmeright again. I just want to clarify, Craig, I'll probably start with you because we've had correspondence in the past, but we can show you our ultimate plan for this area. But at no point do I think this approval is going to be tied to what our final plan is. It's just going to be tied to what we plan to do in the interim, which we'll present a full plan once we're in agreement with Floor and Decor on as well. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, that's great, Eric. I appreciate that. I think what we're just looking for is to making sure it's not for 2, 3, or 5 years going to be nothing, you know.
Yep.
So if they want to show those plans to be done, I mean, it's just something that, you know, the plans on Floor and Decor, or if that plan can be done in the next year or two, then I think even then that's, you know, if that's something that can be stated to the board, I'm comfortable with that. The rest of the board members can agree or disagree with that, or if something needs to be shown at least minimally as an interim, and then to give you time to develop what's going in that space completely to come in later than that time frame, then that's suitable, I think, as well.
Yeah, and if I may make a suggestion too, for the building elevations, if you get a drawing done and you want to share it with me, I'll forward it to the planning board so they can look at it prior to the meeting. And then if there's some fixes that we would like to see, you know, we can all come to an agreement prior to the meeting, and hopefully December, it's one and done or two and done.
Yes, we absolutely take you up on that offer.
Yes, thank you. And what is your next meeting, and by when would you actually need a formal plan submission, both the building elevations as well as the treatment of the courtyard area?
Next meeting is the third Tuesday in December.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what that date is.
But as far as submittal, obviously, because you've already made a formal submittal, we don't need the 30 days or anything like that. If I could have it maybe a week to 10 days prior to the meeting, that would be enough that, you know, we can share it with the board.
That's enough to advertise, and well, we're gonna have them on the docket anyway.
We're gonna
right?
have a meeting
Okay.
anyway, yes.
All right.
And we'll put you automatically on the agenda for December meeting. And then if for some
December
reason-
20th. Yep.
The 20th.
I
Thank
would
you.
7 days would be appropriate unless you need something more.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the board has enough time to review it, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion on the to consider. It's a table.
It's been seconded and
And
discussed.
second, yep. Any more discussion?
Are we clear with the description, Dan?
Yeah, you tabled it, they understand what you're.
Right.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We have a tabled application. So we'll see you folks next month, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's my question is I don't have any conclusion right now.
Next item on the agenda, application number 22-019, South Ridge Landing. This is for final site plan approval of a 62-unit apartment building on 6.996 acres of land located at what will be known as 2520, that's 2520 East Henrietta Road, in a commercial B2 zoned district. Good evening and welcome. I'll have you introduce yourselves, please. Yep.
She's gonna need a
A
microphone.
microphone, yeah. Where's the hand mic?
Oh, would you mind?
there we go.
Yep, if you hold that button, it should turn on green.
Just hold it in until it lights up.
Hello, does that work?
Yep.
Right.
Angela Eichholz with Dakota Partners. Last name is EICHOLTZ.
And with what? I'm sorry.
Dakota Partners.
Thank you.
And there's a holder there if you wanna. Yep. Unless you're comfortable holding it the whole time.
But then we make you dance, so.
And my name's Joshua Saxton. I'm a civil engineer at Pastor Associates.
Can you spell your last name?
Saxton, SAXTON.
Thank you.
So I guess before we get into the current site that we submitted, I want to give a little history lesson on the site and the project is Since March earlier this year. This is the original plan we submitted, for the special use permit. First meeting we had, I would say, residents, both of the opinions, on the site, and I would say three main points of contention in that meeting, kind of what dictated the site that we have now. Site access and certification.
Josh, excuse me, I might have you use the microphone while you're away from that one there.
Good call.
Just so, yep, just so Heather's got the transcript.
about
Thank you
that.
very much.
So kind of repeating what I said, this was the original plan. Kind of the 3 points of contention: one, site access and maneuverability. Originally, we had the site entrance along Calkins Road. It's kind of an odd shaped parcel, as you can see, and we were planning on, going right on Calkins Road here. A lot of residents were opposed to that, given that, there was basically going to be a road right now in their backyard. As well as maneuverability around the site. There's concerns about fire access around the site, given the kind of compactness and the tight turns around the parking area. Second, being stormwater. There's an existing stormwater pond kind of in the northeastern portion of the site. A lot of the residents, especially adjacent to this project, voiced a concern about existing drainage issues and concerns they have with the existing pond, as well as what this project may cause for that runoff, which we will get to later on in the design. And then also with the building location, as you can see here, it's an L-shaped building, which that size and shape has been maintained for this most recent submission. But as you can see, the back of the building was facing some residents here, and was relatively close to the other single-family residents adjacent. So those are kind of the three main points that were brought up during the town board meetings. We had multiple public hearings as well as multiple town board meetings, but we did eventually end up on the plan we have now, and that got the special use permit as well as the negative declaration for the site. So kind of getting into the site we have now, as stated, it's about 7 acres, only disturbing about 4 acres of the site for the proposed project. Kind of just go over existing conditions before into the site layout. As I stated, there's kind of an existing pond in the kind of the northwestern or northeastern corner of the site. Pretty drastic grade change throughout the site. Near East Henrietta Road, it's a pretty steep drop off, and it kind of flattens out as you get more into the site. If you ever driven down Calkins Road here, there's a big drop off in the road. So it kind of follows that similar grade change, with a majority of, the runoff entering the existing pond here for stormwater, but then, a decent amount bypassing the pond and ending up in this back area by the single family residents. So taking that into account, as well as all of the info we got from the town board meetings, this is kind of the site plan we ended up on, which I think answers a lot of those questions and helps out a lot with those. As you can see, we've removed the access from Calkins. Now we're utilizing an existing kind of curb cut and light on East Henrietta Road. Basically, there's a CVS down here and kind of in the southern portion of the site. And there's an ESL drive-through ATM located there. So it'll be utilizing that same entrance. Accessing the site, you come in, we actually have 360-degree access around the site. As I said, that was one of the points of contention, was fire access. And, part of those meetings, a meeting with town staff, we actually added in this fire access road around. Their main concern was, we originally had a fire access turnaround kind of in this southern portion of the site. Their concern was, if someone parks, in this fire lane here, a truck, an ambulance, what it may be, there's no way for a car, down in the southern area to get out of the site. So, providing that road gives access for cars to, freely leave the site as needed and doesn't impede them from exiting the site. Next was the building, location and orientation. We rotated the L so that there's no, windows facing the single family residence for the site, which, is definitely a benefit. And then the last one, stormwater, which we'll get to more when I, talk about our proposed grading plan. But we've, kind of I'd say upgraded the existing pond. It wasn't well maintained originally, so we, brought it up not only to, quantity standards, but also New York State DEC quality standards as well for stormwater treatment. So those are kind of the
Josh,
three.
can I interrupt you for just
Yeah.
a second? Will that pond now stay under the maintenance of the facility?
I believe so, yes. There's an existing easement right now. I don't know if that's a town easement to go back there. It's a private easement for that existing pond. Yeah, so I would say as a purchase of this, they would be maintaining the existing pond. We're also going to be doing a stormwater maintenance agreement as a part of the SWIP for this project as well.
Okay, so that was just one of the questions and comments, I think, from the neighbors. I mean, the pond that was there was never properly maintained. I don't know who was supposed to do it. But if there's a plan of action going forward, that's what I was gonna let you elaborate on a little bit.
Yeah, and I think now with access, for vehicles, if they need to do maintenance, clearing or revising grading if needed, it's probably a lot easier now than before when it was forested and hard to access.
So as part of this project, we're going to have a full-time maintenance staff on site. So one of the beauties of having an apartment building versus a commercial facility, you're not going to have somebody on site walking behind the building all the time if you have a CVS. By having an apartment building there, we are going to have staff dedicated to this as well as the budget that includes site maintenance as well. So that is something we intend to take care of.
I'm gonna see here. I'm gonna use this one now. So a couple more site features that we have. As you see, the cars will enter, through a long road to the site. The need for that long entrance, as I said, the existing grade change is pretty significant. And you can see on our grading plan, that road, is relatively steep, but we kept it within a slope requirement that the fire marshal requested for, truck access into the site. It said it has a 360-degree access with parking, ADA spots as needed, sidewalks, all along the parking area so that, residents can enter the building. In addition to, parking, we also have additional amenities, a playground located west of the building, and kind of an outdoor area that some of the programming isn't 100%, but it'll be, a dedicated outdoor space for the residents to use. We also have a sidewalk going all the way up the road to East Henrietta Road. That is, important for us for people that maybe don't have cars and want to use some of the surrounding businesses, CVS, Wegmans, go to the town park. They're, not inhibited, living here, they can walk on the sidewalk and go to the sites as needed. So some other site characteristics, 41% green space, which adheres to the town requirement, 25%. Parking, we do not have the amount per code. We did put in for a variance for the reduction in parking. So we will be meeting on that next week. Using the experience of other similar projects, we found, a ratio of registered vehicles to the amount of bedrooms, and we found that the amount of parking we're providing on this project matches existing projects of similar clientele. So it's, I don't think it's gonna be an issue, and, we don't want way more parking than needed. One thing that we will also institute or look into is some land bank parking if needed, to increase the green space, but still provide that ability to add more parking if needed down the line. Which usually isn't the case. Most of the time land bank parking never gets built, but it's always good to have just in case. Kind of going through the site, utilities, stormwater, like I said, we'll be modifying the existing pond. Main problem with the existing pond was, as I said, a lot of it's very steep grade down to the pond. So there isn't really a defined bank, I would say, on the western side. And then the eastern side is actually the bank's lower than what is defined on the west side. So it's kind of a lopsided pond now. So we're actually going to be raising up the bank on the east side to kind of even that out and provide more volume for our stormwater. And we think that maybe has what caused some of the, flooding issues, is that the pond was filling up, but it was almost acting like a huge weir on the east side. The water going into that eastern property line near the single family residence. So, but our project will also kind of almost create a barrier for a lot of that stormwater that's going to be running off East Henrietta Road. Through catch basins, yard inlets, a lot of our drainage is going to be captured, piped, and then going to our stormwater management facility. Sanitary sewer is actually on site, which is convenient. The existing CVS and daycare utilize a sanitary line that's just south of the proposed building. So we'll just be tying into that sanitary line. It is technically private, so we will be televising, inspecting it, making sure that when we tie into it, that it's up to the standards, and that we are adhering to that. Water will be coming from East Henrietta Road, kind of following the alignment of the access road to the site. That'll enter the mechanical room, which has a backflow device, which will make sure that water isn't going back into the public system and causing issues. And then a fire service will actually serve proposed hydrants on the site for firefighting as needed. And then eventually for the stormwater, there's an existing outlet control structure that will actually be removed, and we'll be putting a new one based on different stormwater requirements that we found in our stormwater pollution prevention plan. But that will also be tying into the same analysis point, which is kind of east of the site, which is basically an existing stormwater pipe that travels east kind of through those single family residents that are east of our property. So, yeah, for grading, like I said, the entrance road is relatively steep, but it flattens out as you get closer to the site. Everything generally grades away from the building, and eventually goes to either catch basins or curb inlets that go to our stormwater management facility. A big portion of what I said in the site was, or from the town board meetings, was screenage and, kind of buffering this project to the single family residents. That was, probably one of the biggest points I would say from those meetings. So, us moving the building back definitely helps, but we want to provide additional trees along the northern and the eastern limits of our project to provide more of that buffering, as well as adding in a fence. I know that one of the comments that we had was adding a detail, but I think the plan right now is a 6-foot vinyl fence. That's obviously something that we can, discuss and see, with residents what they want to see, because eventually that's, they're going to be looking back on it. So, we want them to have an input as well. So that about does it for the plans. We did receive comments, and I did at least respond with town staff responses. We have worked with Vanguard and Stantec, who are, the third-party reviewers at the town, on some of their comments, kind of going through that process now, going back and forth, and also dealing with, county agencies, Water Authority, Health Department, Pure Waters, making sure that the plans are up to their standards and that they're ready to sign off when needed. So I believe I provided those responses to you, so I don't know if you had a chance to review them. If there's any specific comments from those letters that you want to go over, or anything about the project, I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you for doing that. That's very helpful when we get those individualized responses to the comments from town staff. I just want to start with one question here. At the neighborhood meetings that you attended, do you remember meeting with Mrs. Sewell or Soule? Soule, and her first name was Sue. And I think you might have addressed this a little bit. She said, she lives down on Thompson Road, and the biggest concern that she had was the detention pond. And a couple things. She said when CVS was proposed, they assured the residents that the pond will be landscaped and taken care of. She claims that's not happened. So she's asking about that. And then secondly, she's concerned with the asphalt would create more sheeting and runoff. I think you talked about you're building up the pond, right? So a lot of that's going to flow in there and not flow out the backside down towards Thompson Road. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I guess to answer the first part of your question, as Angela said, having maintenance staff there and actually developing this area, beautifying that pond as much as we can, with our bioretention areas and other trees around it. It's definitely something that's, in our plans and that we're doing. And you are correct that, part of our stormwater prevention plan, we have to prove that the amount of stormwater leaving our site is not only less, but Henrietta actually has a requirement for 20% less. Just to make sure that, whenever you're doing development, you're definitely reducing a lot more. 20% is, no small task, especially going from, forested area to a paved area. And we did do that with, the pond expansion and building the pond up. So it will be over 20% of the reduction, from the 1 to the 100-year storm. And that would, I think answer the question of the stormwater concern.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll start with Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Josh. I know this project's been back and you've gone through a lot of redesigns, and I appreciate that. As part of the board, I appreciate a lot of the extra effort and I shouldn't say extra, a lot of the effort that you put in to really address the concerns from the neighbors. I believe it's all well accounted for. And I want to make sure that they're handled with that, and it's great. I do have a couple of comments, and I think it's kind of based off of some of those concerns and things that we've discussed before. One might just be a plus though, too. With a lot of this disturbance in the pond in the northeast corner, the seed mix that I saw was a typical fescue besides a wetland mix. That seems like a lot of area to mow and maintain. My own just 2 cents is if you want to make that into something maybe more of a wildflower mix that may not need to be as maintained. Sometimes they drink more water, sometimes they're a little bit better for the birds and the environment, and you're not spending a couple $100 every week to try to keep it mowed. So I'm not opposed to stuff like that.
Okay.
I didn't see that quite so much in the conservation board. Sometimes they catch them in those minutes or from those comments. I did read through the CB's comments. The trees that I see on site, the landscaping looks great. The ones that are going in though, the trees that I see are mostly deciduous. I didn't see any mix with conifer or anything else of some evergreens. So I wasn't sure if we could mix some of those up.
Yeah, it's definitely doable.
And if we have to maybe substitute, or I think I'd like to see if there's a possibility that we could just put maybe a couple of trees in a bank to this project to maybe infill some of the existing foliage. I mean, a lot of it's dead. I've been out there, what's there and it's shown is just not as much of a buffer as we'd all like to see. So I'm not sure if planting even a tree in some of those open spaces would be beneficial in those buffer areas, but I don't know if there's a possibility of maybe putting a half dozen a conifer or some sort of hardy green tree in there that maybe is a little more deer resistant that might be able to infill some of those open spaces. I don't know if that would be beneficial during construction, and we could say that there's a couple of spaces that would be identifiable with some of that. I looked at that resident's comments. That resident is 151 Thompson, which is up at the northeast corner. And I see that, into some of those houses where I don't want to say we're adding drainage, but we're certainly increasing that bank. You're saying you're bringing up that side of the bank, and then that's going to increase that on the east side there. But it's going to be grass or wildflower mix maybe on that side of the fence. Or maybe something over there that would also help with the runoff. Maybe that's why I'm thinking a taller grass or something else over there besides mowable.
Yeah.
Which would accentuate that.
Yep, I agree. And like I said, I think, like you said, building up that bank, will be increasing the slope there. But I do think, there was a decent amount of runoff that was either bypassing the pond or that bank was so low on that eastern side that it wasn't retaining as much water as maybe it was originally designed to do.
And it's not really enough of an area. Sometimes, we maybe suggest an under drain because even if the storm system is there, putting in a pipe underground might be beneficial, but I don't know if it's enough area to be beneficial to that degree and to have another maintenance issue. So I guess where I'm thinking where the grass might as an option. Chris, I don't know what you're thinking on that.
I don't. No, seriously, that's something.
He's already agreed with me once. I can't, I gotta run with that
can't
one.
Do it twice in one night.
Okay. Then the only other comment that I think I have, which is kind of new for me, and maybe you can shed, well, no, shed some light on, are the poles. So I'm looking at, on the lighting plan, is a 14-foot Evolve LED post top. It's more of a colonial top. I don't see I see a wattage, but I don't see a lumen on these. Do you know what type? Is this like a 5,000 K? I don't know, or a 4,000?
I want to say we did 3,000.
That would be great. But so here's my worry is that we're dealing with an elevation issue. And then we have a colonial post top that for a regular DSX2 head or something has the ability of a cutoff shield, but they're not as ornamental as something like this. These colonials don't really have a cutoff shield. And if we're dealing with residents in their backyard, hypothetically, they're looking up at that diode in the top of that colonial. So we might have what's, you know, the light bulb view effect, I guess, if you call it that. So I'm concerned to think a little bit about what that might be. But 14 footers are nice because they're lower, keeps the light low and it's not cast out so much. And the colonials are a nicer thing a nicer ornamental to look at. I'm just worried about the light shed and what people in their backyards might be viewing as far as a light bulb concept. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's definitely something we can look at, especially, I think that'll be, you know, the biggest effect is on the entrance because that's obviously the highest point of the site.
And the entrance would be one, but I'm actually kind of thinking more of the south and southeast side.
Okay.
You know, I know we have, how many lights? I didn't see how many coming down and they're even on the south side of the road.
Yeah.
And the entrance road. And I think you have 100-foot residential buffer and then the road.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a good distance, I think, on the north, which is why that didn't really stick out to me as much as maybe the eastern side.
I mean, we still have the 100-foot buffer on the eastern side. And then
Yeah,
that's going to be
that's-
at a lower elevation too.
Right, that has a lower elevation concept. I
yeah,
think is what I
so-
was trying to come into. Now, this may be a non-issue. There may be existing vegetation there that covers this.
Yeah.
But I don't know that yet.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to pinpoint where these lights are going. From what I know out there is going to be dead trees or is going to be viewable, which is maybe why some conifers would be beneficial down the road. And so that's just my 2 cents on that. So I think just from the comments and the stuff that we've seen from the residents or what we're looking at, I think maybe some benefits to that.
Okay.
The only comment I had was the grades on the storm pipe, obviously coming down that hill are pretty high, 7%. It's HDPE pipe. Is that, and you got N12? I mean, erosive, they get erosive at that speed. So I guess I'm just want to make sure we get something in there as a pipe for that velocity that meets, that would be suitable for that area. Because everything's booking down from CVS, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, it kind of follows the road grade that's going
Right.
down. Because if you have it too shallow, then you have pipes sticking out of the road. So we
Right,
definitely
right.
look to changing that material to
Let's
suit
just
about the velocity.
Take a look at the erosives
Yep.
on that and with, you know, especially with it being by the road, you're going to get grit and sand and stuff like that.
Yep.
That's it. Those are the comments that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Okay, we'll recognize Mr. Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Josh, there was some statements made by engineering department from Roland about the sanitary sewers. He had some suggestions. You see that letter?
Yeah. Yeah.
In
About the
reference to,
televising and.
Yeah, televising and
Yep.
because of fourth tie-in there.
Yeah.
Is that too? Can you guys take care of that?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. You know, work with the town staff on that.
Okay.
Televising, making sure it's inspected properly
Right.
and going through all the procedures we need to handle our tie into the sanitary sewer that's right there now. So.
All right, great. That's the only thing I have. Everything else, Craig kind of covered that I was thinking about as far as grading. Just want to make sure the residents don't get more water down
Yep.
there.
Thank you, Mr. Barley.
Yep.
Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. Can you identify where Craig is referring to for the wildflowers? Uh-huh.
So just, you know, providing some of that sweetness along the bank, getting back there and difficult promoting.
Obviously, you know, it's got facing from the roof. The mowing, so Brian, that seed mix that Craig suggested will increase vegetation and in theory reduce the amount of coming out that bank just based on the vegetation.
And save them money.
Right, right.
I don't know if that's true.
Crown vetch is another planting that might be considered.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. That's an invasive species.
It
Okay.
is now, that's right, it was determined.
Yeah, crown
Sorry
patch,
about
first
that.
what trefoil was, and then they deemed that invasive. It's just aggressive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's I don't know if there's a new ground cover from something like that.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, we
why I
can definitely
want
look
the
into it.
wildflower mix, because it might be beneficial to the birds and the habitat that's kind of being removed, so.
Mhm.
I was just thinking,
And that growth from a foot, 16 inches, and then dies off, you know, but it flowers, so.
and the only reason I was thinking something like that was, it's more of an evergreen.
Right.
Forgive me, I had a
Gotcha.
little issue, as I'm sure you all thought.
Yeah.
Forgive me,
Yeah, an evergreen concept wouldn't be a bad
Yeah.
thought either, if that's something of
just
interest.
maintains the integrity of the edge of the pond better.
Yeah.
More seasonality.
Yep.
But unlike the wildflowers, it's not gonna attract the butterflies and the bees and the birds and things like that. So
Mm.
that was a great idea. I like that.
It's from the conservation board. Our sustainability committee.
Have we reviewed the colors of the building?
I do have.
Good question.
I didn't think we did.
I didn't think you did.
Do you have samples?
We did provide, you know, what we was there, you know, what it looked like.
Can you explain what those are, please?
So there.
Mainly neutral tone sidings. I'm the civil engineer, not the architect, so I don't want to say anything too incorrect. I don't know if you have any, opinion on them at all, Angela, or say on the sidings
I
or
mean, are we
what we've
talking siding?
decided.
Are we talking stone? Are we talking brick? What am I looking
Yeah,
at?
it's siding.
All,
Looks like 1 and 2 is vinyl siding.
Yes.
oh, they are. That's great.
Okay, so you're mixing a vinyl and brick.
I believe
And then multiple colors to break up the facade.
Under general number 6, and forgive me if this was addressed. It mentions that you submitted variance to the ZBA to request reduction in the parking spaces. And again, this may have already been mentioned, but I had it noted and I didn't hear it. How did that go? Was that approved?
It's for next month for the variance for that.
Applicant has submitted it, so it is for the month of December and will be determined at that
Yes,
time.
yeah.
Thank you. And everything else I had noted has been addressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Chair will recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you. Quick question on the parking.
Mhm.
I think you had said in the beginning that if you had to add, you may have to add on additional parking spaces.
No, that was for land bank parking. So it'd actually be converting some of the spots we have to land banking to increase the green space.
Okay,
We don't see a need to add more parking.
okay,
And obviously adding land bank parking is kind of a win-win. We don't have to, put as much parking in and spend all the money on the parking areas, but it's there in the future if needed. And then, there's more green space on the site.
thanks. for
Because
the
of that, so.
clarification. Thank you.
Yep.
Those are my only questions.
Thank you very much. So one more, so just the one access to the site, right? So all the construction vehicles will be going in the, I'll call it the CVS parking lot, and then down that road, correct?
Yes.
Yep. How long do you anticipate construction taking? If
Approximately 14 months,
14 months?
although I think we could probably do it for less than that.
Okay,
That's what we're telling the bank.
okay. All right, thank you. I think that's all I had. Mr. Martin, any comments from you, sir?
No, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Mistrella?
Couple of issues. So there is an application for a variance for parking pending.
Yes.
All right, hasn't been decided yet.
No, it'll be decided on next
And-
month.
And is is what's depicted on the site plan, that the parking that's depicted, does that show what it will be if the variance is granted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So any approval has to be conditioned upon the granting of a variance for parking. You indicated that you got a special permit from the town board, correct?
Yes.
So I didn't see anything in our package on that, and maybe I just missed it if it
Yeah,
was
there
in there.
should have been
But
a
was there,
town board resolution that was attached to it. Dan.
okay, I didn't see it. Is there anything in there that the planning board needs to address? Because I haven't reviewed that.
Yeah, let me just take a quick run through it. It's, the project attains all approvals required of the planning board. The project may not have an exit out to Calkins Road, gated or ungated, unless by connection to an existing driveway of a neighboring commercial property, which like CVS, for example.
Okay, so that isn't, you don't show anything like that on
No.
the plan.
It's just one entrance. Let's see, the project must provide for a fire lane and access road that completely loops around the apartment building and must keep the road clear of obstruction, including snow and ice. Which they have. The project must provide a sidewalk connecting the building to East Henrietta Road sidewalks and or future sidewalks on Calkins Road. Next, number 5, the project must orient the apartment building as presented at the September 14th, 2022 public hearing, so as to keep the windows and balconies of the apartments away from adjacent single-family residents. Number 6, the project must provide a berm and other landscaping features as approved by the planning board, so as to provide for additional buffering to the adjacent single-family residence. Number 7, the project must reduce the amount of stormwater runoff reaching the neighborhood residential properties, especially those along Thompson Road, and must maintain any stormwater management facilities required as part of the site plan. And last, number 8, the project shall locate its dumpster enclosure at least 250 feet from any property line shared by a single-family residential parcel.
Chris, what was that you were just reading?
The dumpster enclosure, so the project shall locate its dumpster enclosure at
Special-
least two
special
hundred
use
and
permit.
fifty feet from any property line shared by a single-family residence. So what they were trying to do is to move it as far away from the residence as possible. Because a lot of times if they, they collect it, you hear the doors slam up and down when the trucks come in.
She was
So they're-
referring to the document you're reading from, which is the condition.
Oh, I'm sorry, the document.
That's
That's
okay.
I will pass this along.
Yes, and I.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, you didn't see that in your packets at all?
No,
No,
It should have been included.
can
My
I include
apologies.
that with my minutes, please?
Yeah.
and
There.
the site plan as you've submitted it for approval, does it meet all of those
Yes, it does.
conditions?
Yep.
Yeah, so these were outlined in the town board resolution for the special use permit.
Very good. Thank you, Chris.
And you saw the memo from engineering regarding the formation of a sanitary sewer district extension.
Yes.
That's something that this board doesn't deal with. The town board deals with it. The engineering department deals with it, but
But it's just a note that they will have to be provided.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mistrella. All set?
all set.
Very good. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion.
I would like to approve conditional on granting the variance from the zoning board of appeals for reduction in the number of parking spaces. And I would like to ask the question if conditional should also be referenced based on what Chris read.
Apparently the site plan contains all those features, so in approving it, that you don't have to
Thank you.
reiterate.
Thank you.
So Mrs. Brill, your motion includes it's conditional upon the applicant receiving the parking variance.
That is
Correct.
correct.
Okay, thank you. You have sufficient second, please?
Second.
Mr. Barley?
Going my voice again.
Thank you, sir. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Those are good. I should.
You can
say
just leave
one.
that. We'll take care of it.
I had one.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you
say
very
one.
much.
Really Good. I haven't had those in a long time. The packaging is different, you know.
Motion to adjourn, anybody?
So move.
Thank you, Mr.
What do we got?
802, Mr. Eckert.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, it's been moved back.
Mr. Eckert stole the.
He got it.
I would hold on to it,
He
Dan. I
beat me.
mean, we're not gonna ask them
Don't know
to
how.
revise the plans at all, just the building elevation.
Bye, Millie.
Just so, but yeah, so that's a good point, Dan made. So hold on to your floor decor package.
Yeah.
We're not gonna ask them to revise the plans except for the building elevation and whatever they provide.